Triple Play Fantasy Baseball coming at you again on a nice, beautiful Thursday afternoon. It is a gorgeous day here in Baltimore, Maryland. Of course, joined by normal co-host, the Doc, from his rental home over in Pigtown. How's it going, buddy?
You know, it was going better until like 10 minutes ago when, some pitchers just gave up some home runs. We don't really want to talk about it.
You don't want to talk about Zach Wheeler or Tawan Walker. I get it. It can be a rough subject, but what's not a rough subject is who's joining the show today. We welcome in somebody that contains all the golden baseball nuggets, an MLB Sabermetrician. I'm glad I could say that correctly. Historian, Statcast nerd, and named MLB Stats X Wobakan. This Rhode Island icon has projections, got stats. That D in the name stands for deviation from the mean. We welcome in someone who is very much on brand because we have Jessica Brand. How is it going?
Very well, David. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and great fun.
Yeah, happy to have you. Again, you know your stuff. If you ever check out Jessica's Twitter feed, it's filled with tons of amazing and great stats that are great to check out. Sometimes it's certain things like you're like, wow, I had no idea that X or Y existed, and you point them out there. So it's honestly a great to check out also that you put out there. So I'm just curious, can you tell everybody how you got started in the fantasy baseball world and what got you into doing this crazy game that we love so much?
Oh yeah, so for fantasy baseball, so my family runs a league and it has for years. It's a 5x5 word league on Yahoo. It goes back about like 20 something years. And, my father used to do that, and he's the one who got me into baseball. And he did statistics for a living. He used to do work for Netflix before they got big. He did stuff for young brands. So I like to take after him. So he started baseball. I like baseball. He did statistics. I like statistics. And fantasy baseball seemed like a really good way to accumulate the two. And, at the very least, bragging rights. Eventually, I figured, well, I can do more than just, like winning a model. I can help other people out with statistical models. I can help people with predicting what's going to happen with them in the future based upon existing trends. And it's also really got me interested in DFS as well because I run an optimizer that can spit out a DraftKings lineup for the optimal usage that way. So it's the opportunity to help people. It's the opportunity to show off a little, if I'm honest. And it's also, just a lot of fun to show that based on what can reasonably happen. Granted, because it's statistics like this and it's projection, it's the average within the range of possibilities. But usually, you aim for the top of that bell curve, and you usually get a fair share of the top. And that makes it kind of fun, right? It's like there's always that underlying element of the psychic, the psychic who knows what's coming next. Even if it's mathematically based, like there's that neat aura of mysteriousness.
No, it's insanely awesome, and I definitely have been getting more into analytics, and I can understand the baseball savant, I can understand the fan graphs, I can understand underlying data, but you having optimizers and you being able to correlate things in the ways that the average person can't, I think is what makes you so much of a better player than most out there. And I think it's a skill that takes a lot of time, and I know, like you said, you probably have to create a lot of different projection systems to try to find what the best one to optimize. Is that correct? Like, it's not just one system that you work on.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. So, someone asked me about this prior to the year when I was doing fantasy work, and I was doing a lot of individual projections. So, they were saying, like, oh, what system do you like to use? And personally, I believe ATC, great job here, Cone. I think that's the best one overall. It's the best for depth. But I don't think it's as good for top-end and superstar projection talent. So I compared it to, like, food tape.
Well, seems like a couple technical problems there. Jessica will add her back in when whatever is going on.
I'm usually the one with technical difficulty. Somebody else can't steal my thunder.
That's very true. We were going to have her jump in once we get things going here, Doc. I got to ask you, are you ready to talk about this show today, which is an interesting topic to say the least? Are you ready? Are you pumped?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm ready to talk about people that are restricted for the rest of the year.
And Jessica, can you hear us? You good? Uh-oh, it's all good. I know sometimes StreamYard.
Sorry. Oh, geez. Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
No, no
Do
worries.
you want me to start over with that? I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with that. All right. Sorry. So,
We can.
you were saying about projection systems. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So
Yeah. Go ahead.
projection systems to me are like different flavor profiles. Like we all like a good bacon cheeseburger, but we're not going to eat a bacon cheeseburger if we want something sweet to eat. So maybe I'm going to use a different food to get there, like like a cake. So we have to use. Personally, I like to use all kinds of different projection systems depending on what type of value I'm trying to actually project and what tier of player, like 1 to 50 versus 200 to 250, I'm trying to ascertain and I'm trying to look at. So ultimately, what I'm working on this winter is more like a composite index database that's personally my own. It's using existing data from a lot of people like Zimborski and Cohen and Cardi, but it basically takes the best part of each one and makes it its own system. Now, granted, Fangraphs has tried to do that with like a few of them, but nobody's tried to do it with all of them. So that's my project for this winter.
I love it. Well, I'm interested to hear your projections on what we're going to be talking about today. And that is innings matter because they all do. Can't not forget any single inning. So as you're heading down the stretch in your fantasy baseball season, roughly about 10 weeks to go, things are fine and you're sitting pretty. Suddenly, your starters have their starts skipped. 7 inning, 100 pitch outings become 4 innings, 75 pitch outings, wins, Ks, and points all being wiped away from your fantasy team. Oh, God, it's a lot to deal with. So just important thing to note for people that aren't familiar with the innings restrictions and what normally it kind of constitutes with it. Normally, teams don't like to increase a pitcher's workload by more than 50 innings from one year to the next, with 30 being more of an optimal number that teams look at. Neither was realistic, obviously, coming from a shortened 2020 season. We kind of didn't really know what they were going to look at. So with this exercise, what I have is I have each pitcher's 2019 totals. And then what's going to come after is anyone's guess. I'll give you obviously what their 2021 totals are to date. So we're going to try to do our best to figure out what we can expect from these 8 starting pitchers who have been publicly talked about with their innings being limited. And if we should maybe trade them, what we project from them for rest of season in terms of 5x5 roto leagues, just standard 5x5. And again, if you're in a trades league, if you're going to get rid of them, if you're going to try to ride it out, whatever the case may be. So let's start off number 1. Freddie Peralta, who has spent much of his career to this point in relief, and he's really broken out on the scene this year. It's not a surprise to see the Brewers trying to take steps back on him, slow him down a little bit, as they look like they're one of the teams to be one of the best teams, obviously, in the National League. They have, I think, an 8-game lead in the NL Central Division, so they don't need to push their pitchers at this moment. Right now, you have Freddie Peralta, who's at 102 innings in 2021. He pitched 96.2 innings in 2019. So if you have that 30 innings pitch increase there, you're up at about 126 innings, which only leave about 24 innings left. It's obviously going to be broken. So, Jessica, I'll come to you first. For Freddie Peralta, what should we expect rest of season from him?
So I'm expecting great things. So as I mentioned, I did 5x5 roto format. So for those that aren't familiar with that format, I imagine you all are, but just in case you're not, it's win, saves, ERA, whip, strikeouts. So I have Peralta projected this season having 61 more innings. That is 46th ranked amongst all pitchers, so that includes relievers. But he wouldn't be below any relievers for that. I expect really good things, though. I have his ERA going forward almost inside the top 10. His whip in the mid-teens. Maybe not the most wins. I'm not totally sold on the NL Central this year on the whole. He's a borderline top 10 strikeout pitcher. And to have that kind of diversity, I think he is a top 10 pitcher in baseball going forward the rest of the way.
A top 10 pitcher in baseball the rest of the way. I like
That's
it.
spicy. I like it.
So you think you're not worried about the innings at all, really, for him down the stretch then?
Maybe a little bit. I mean, 46 for a top 10 guy is maybe not ideal where you'd want it to be, but it's not like it's going to be like a cutoff, like I think maybe where I have a Trevor Rogers would be of a young guy who's a stud going forward. Peralta's not that type of guy to me, and I think it matters in this case that Milwaukee is contending, right? You mentioned it, not only for the fact that this is that it's a win-based league hypothetically, so you're going to get more wins. Just basic premise: winning teams get more winning pitchers by record. And the fact that I think that they realize they don't have this is their really first shot to contend in quite some time, genuinely. So I think they're going to try to maximize that for what it's worth because they have a bunch of cost-controlled guys and they get expensive, especially quickly. And if you can do that with these guys cheaply, you want to make sure you get your chance to do that. It kind of reminds me, except don't think they'll do that this way, about how the Nationals shut down Strasburg, except they're going to take the alternate path, right? So it's kind of like the road less traveled, except maybe it'll be the more traveled road in this case. But I am a big bullish on Freddie Peralta going forward. I think he's you definitely should keep him, try to acquire him if you can get him cheap, if people have those underlying concerns about innings.
So I'll ask you then this to follow up. Are you worried about the potential which just happened in his last start, where they only pitched him 4 innings? Are you worried that there might be a few of those down the stretch where, hey, he's going to give you great innings, but that he's not going to maybe like every second or third time he goes, that they're not going to let him qualify for a win, and that they're going to have him on some type of pitch count? Is that at all cause concern for you, or do you think that most of the starts from here on out, he's going to give you, 6-7 innings?
I think I think you will see a lot more 4 to 6, honestly, because I think they're going to try to save him. Like, I mean, the postseason thing in that case might turn you a little bit, right? As much as they're going to try to drag him out there to assure the wins, they're going to try to make sure he has some bullets left in the tank for October. So it's a double-edged sword, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, then let's move on to someone you actually brought up, and I'll talk about Trevor Rogers, who I've seen actually being traded a lot in some leagues while people are scrambling because of the inning concerns here. It may not seem like one of the likeliest pitchers to be shut down, given that he's a rookie who's yet to miss a turn, but the team has no serious playoff aspirations right now. Pitching coach on the team has already addressed these issues, talking about that Rogers could throw as many as 175 innings. But again, right now, you hear pitching coaches say one thing, teams don't always replicate that. Right now, Trevor Rogers is at 106.1 innings and has yet to give up more than 3 earned runs in any start this season. The most he's pitched is 136.1 innings in 2019. So he's right now 30 innings under his 2019 total. So that 30 innings pitch bump would give it to about 166 innings, so roughly what they're expecting. Doc, I'll go to you first. If you have Trevor Rogers on your roster, are you looking to try to sell him if you can? Are you trying to keep him and ride out whatever he's left in there? What are you doing with Trevor Rogers?
So I think the window to sell Trevor Rogers is probably past. In our home league, somebody actually just traded him for Mark Canha. I'm concerned about him. I look at his ERA each month: April 1.29, May 2.34, June 2.73, and July 3.86. When we had Aaron Savale on, he said, like, hey, look, like, you have fatigue over the season. And I think when you're this young and you haven't pitched this much, that the numbers kind of speak for itself. I think they might maybe skip some starts. I mean, they just traded Starling Marte for a very good prospect in Jesus Luzardo. So I think that shows they're kind of punting on this season. And I think they're going to take a lesson of Sixto Sanchez, where, hey, look, we tried rushing somebody back way too soon. He ended up having to miss the entire season. They have a very good rotation for the future. And I think that, Kim Ng and their new baseball operations are taking kind of a more long-term approach. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Rogers only pitches a handful of games the rest of the season, especially coming off a back spasms injury.
Yeah, and what scares me the most is that they're not in playoff contention. So there's no reason to push him at this point. If you have a guy that you're sensitive about an innings limit, but you're also not contending, that's a huge double whammy for me.
Pablo Lopez was on the IL too, so I figure maybe they're really conservative with all of their pitchers that have some sort of injury.
Yeah, Jessica, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have some concerns about this. Well, Trevor Rogers for me is my 61st ranked innings pitch going forward. That is around, by the way, the range of Lance McCullers, Framber Valdez, Blake Snell, John Gray. This concerns me. I'm not even concerned. I don't think he's very much of a guy going forward. I think he's my number 40 overall, including relievers, pitcher going forward for the rest of the season by 5x5. I don't like his peripherals. I don't like the way he's given up contact. I don't think he gets many innings. I have him at 58. That's like Eduardo Rodriguez range. Nothing really sticks out to me to positive, but he's giving up much more hard contact and consistently so. So if you can trade him, and admittedly, I own him. I have a good experience personally with Trevor Rogers, but I would definitely try to trade him. I don't believe in the innings. I don't believe in his stuff going forward, because Doc hit on that perfectly. It's just it's kind of dominoing. It's kind of spiraling. It's avalanching and getting a little bit harder for him to maintain control. And I thought the non-playoff team point was a great thing. Like, what's the active incentive? Like, increase more risk he gets hurt, or maybe get your record a little bit worse because he didn't play in the start, and maybe you get a better draft pick next summer.
Great point. Right? Yeah.
So, Jessica, if you're in a league that doesn't have trading, like an NFBC, anything like any type of the really high stakes leagues, and you have Trevor Rogers on your roster, are you looking to that be one of the first pitchers that you're going to be dropping to pick up someone that you need innings, so and give you Ks, any kind of categories where you need those? Is he somebody that you're happy to drop to be able to pick up an Austin Gomber or an Adam Wainwright or somebody of that regard?
I'm not sure I would go that far. So I was big on the Austin Gomber trader early. I don't think I have Gomber quite that well. Gomber is, I think, still like in my 90s range. I think Rogers is still a top 40 pitcher in the league. That's still pretty good. It's not probably what you expected to hear at this time in May or June, but it's where we are. You still have a middle of the rotation option that you can maybe count on somewhat consistently rather than very consistently. It's not like he's a negative asset, but it's a perfect time to sell high at the same time. He's kind of, like the batter we talked about, high BABIP. Oh, he's going to regress. Oh, he has a high stack cast stats that we use for reflective purposes or descriptive purposes. These are just indicators that a guy is outperformed, and that's why I think we're seeing on the case right here. Like, we see an unsustainable BABIP rate from a hitter. Oh, he's going to regress. Yes. We kind of saw that from Rogers now when he's in the regression phase. So if someone sees those numbers, I always like to leave notes in my trade messages and trade requests. Like, we look at these numbers from April and May. You could bounce back from it. I always like to psych people out with the good parts of the players. So there's a potential there for you or someone else still.
All right, well, I like it. So let's move then to our third one here. And this is somebody who's finally somewhat lived up to the potential we saw from him early on in his career. That's Julio Urias, who the plan for him early in his career was to ease him into a starter's workload, have him split time between the bullpen, kind of like a Corbin Burns, Freddie Peralta type of vibe as far as starting. Pandemic obviously came at a time, at a worse time for him because he wasn't able to really build that up. The Dodgers kind of had to put the training wheels on him in 2020, fully let him loose in 2021. And right now, Dave Roberts saying at one point that it would be reckless to let Urias throw 200 innings. At this point right now, it's looking like he get up to 180 right now. He's at 124.2 innings right now, which is actually 10th in all of baseball. So it's crazy that someone like Urias, who was kind of shifting between the bullpen and starters, has now the 10th most innings pitched in the majors. In 2019, he pitched 85.1 innings. So he's already about 40 pitches over what he was in 2019. And he's looking like that 180 mark is on the horizon. So I'm going to ask, Jessica, I'm going to go back to you. If you have Julio Urias, are you just riding this out? Are you scared that with this much of an increase in innings that there could be injury? What are your thoughts on Julio Urias?
Yeah, so there are a lot of things. I don't like the contact he's given up. I have him 171st going forward in ERA projections.
Oh, wow.
Amongst all pitchers. I have him projected at 58 innings going forward. That is my tie for my 59th most. That's not really reliable in that respect. I still think he's maybe a little bit higher than Rogers because he can get you I think he's a little bit stronger with his swing and miss stuff. But I'm really not sold on this guy not blowing up either because they refuse to give him innings or his stuff just doesn't work out. And unlike, at the plate, it's not 3 strikes and you're out. This is 2 strikes and you're out. I would move or drop him immediately. You talked about getting the guy for an Austin Gomber or an Adam Wainwright. This is the guy I would consider doing it even more heavily.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're very much anti-Urias. And I think people don't realize that innings limit with him is much like Rogers has been publicly floated out there. I think even the casual fantasy baseball fans realize Trevor Rogers has that innings cap. I don't think it's just been as public with Urias. So you're very much, hey, I'm going to trade Urias any chance I get. I don't want any part of him going forward.
Yeah, no, I really don't. I just don't see it. I think he has the upside to do more than Rogers going forward if they let him pitch, because I think he has better swing in this stuff. But I think he's going to regress to where people hit it more often. And even if that doesn't happen, I don't expect him to get the innings. So I don't see any scenario where that really wins out. Like you can see that one little that one last little slice of the pie there that you cut open, but it's like half a slice. And you hope it works out, but you're still hungry for dessert after the fact.
I'm always hungry for dessert, so I like that. Doc, what about you? What are your thoughts on Mr. Julio?
So I'm actually the opposite. I don't think that they're going to really limit him. And I think you look at the alternatives. Trevor Bauer probably won't pitch again this year, and deservedly so. They're going to manage Kershaw. They're going to save him for the postseason coming off of an IL stint. David Price isn't a starter anymore that can go 5-6 innings. He's more of a 3-4 innings type of guy. And
Well, they are building him up, like slowly, but he is.
They are building him up, but I think not only in terms of his pitch count, but his effectiveness. He's not an effective 5 or 6 inning pitcher. He's probably best in that 3 to 4 inning type of role. So that really kind of limits the pitching upside that you thought was a plethora to begin the season. I think the Dodgers have championship aspirations. Arias has 12 wins on the year, which actually leads the MLB. And he's never thrown 80 innings plus or more than 80 innings in any season before. So they've actually preserved his arm pretty well. They're playing in a competitive division with the Padres, who literally just traded for Adam Frazier, and the Giants, who are leading the division. So it's not like they can afford to rest him because they have a huge lead like they did last year. I think they're actually going to pitch him a decent amount, and he's somebody, if they're selling low, I'll buy.
Well, right now, you have Tony Gonsolin in that rotation. You guys know who leads all of baseball in innings pitched right now?
Kyle Gibson.
Jessica, do you know?
I could know. Who is it?
It's Walker Buehler, who actually leads all of baseball with 135 innings pitched. So Walker Buehler, Tony Gonsolin, David Price, Julio Urias, and then, I guess, you have Josiah Gray, kind of mixing in there some. Obviously, Kershaw when he comes back. But there's not a ton of depth. So I do understand from that point, Doc, what you're saying. I am kind of curious, though. Did any of you guys think since the Dodgers won it last year and the pressure to win a World Series isn't quite as prominent as it was in years past, that they take the safer route and that they're like, hey, we don't want to push these guys too far to where they hurt themselves and endanger us for years to come. We won it last year. We're going to be competitive this year, but we're not going to be reckless. Do you think, Jessica, do you think any of that crosses the Dodgers' mind at all?
Not this year, but not because of their own factors. You mentioned the Giants and the Padres. I think that pushes them to actually have it, right? Because, they're kind of an aging core, number one. So the window for this particular group of individuals is a little bit waning, as much as I really love their farm system. But, look, I think you want to make sure you have, at the very worst, a home game in the wild card game. You don't want to wind up going to San Diego or San Francisco at one game and be out, right? Especially with how they spend, especially relatively to what San Francisco and what San Diego spend. So I think they're going to still try to be all in no matter what. And that seems to be their mentality. Los Angeles' mentality, and I've been watching them late at night the past several years. They just want to go full scorched earth as much as possible, however possible, to avenge what happened to them against Houston in 2017. And that is the mentality of that fan base. That is the mentality of how they really manage a lot of the time. So I think they'll want to try to keep guys in for the most part, but they really don't like to do a lot of breaks. They will if they play through like it's, where everything's wrapped up. But in this division and this year, it's not the case.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see how things play out. Dodgers are definitely fascinating to keep an eye on as the season heads in the home stretch here. Let's talk about someone in the American League Central. Let's talk about somebody who I was high as anybody on Dylan's season. He's had a pretty decent year for the most part. I'm still happy with how he's performed, and I think the best is yet to come from him. But his teammate Carlos Rodon has really set the world on fire this year. Keep in mind, he only threw 7 2/3 innings in 2020, his first year back from Tommy John. So you expect the buildup to maybe be particularly cautious after that big of a surgery, obviously. But his breakthrough has actually seemed like more work has been invited here. And the incentive to shut him down with how the White Sox have been playing, obviously, they have to figure out what they're going to do here. Because 2019, 34.2 innings. In 2021, he's at already 100.2 innings right now. So he's at nearly 70 innings increase already from his 2019 season. So, Jessica, I'll go back to you. Talk about Rodon here. What are your thoughts? Carlos Rodon's been exceptional. What are you doing with him?
So I'm keeping him. He is right above Freddie Peralta in my pitcher rankings going forward. He's at number 8, whereas Peralta's at number 9 going forward. I really like what he can provide in terms of innings pitched, which is, it's not amazing because you mentioned the Tommy John. I am still projected just outside my top 30 for innings pitched at 63. Should get a fair share of wins because Chicago's offense is pretty prolific, and he's been pretty dominant this year with the batted ball. Been very good in terms of soft contact. Been very good in terms of what you can expect him to allow. I've been top 10 in ERA, just outside top 10 in WHIP. So this is just outside of like Aaron Nola and Corbin Burns territory. This is a guy that, I mean, if you can try to get even like, honestly, this one I would consider, assuming it's not like a keeper league or something like that, I would consider trading like a Walker Buehler for him at this point, or maybe even like a Shane Bieber. I mean, I can say that at the start of the year, right? Which KO Central pitcher would you rather have for redraft league? Rodon or Rondon? But right now I take Rodon. I think consistently he's very good. He is just outside of the absolutely elite.
Yeah, I mean, Rondon is, again, really been killing it there. Doc, what about you? What are your thoughts on the guy who keeps his shirt unbuttoned at the top, shows off that chest hair? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I'm with Jessica on this. He's at 100.2 innings right now. It's actually his most since 2018 when he threw 120.2, and he'll likely pass that. His career high is 165. This is a guy that's been plagued a lot by injuries in his career, so you don't have to worry about those cumulative innings year after year adding up. And they signed him for a one-year deal, kind of like a prove it. So I don't think there's any incentive for the White Sox to hold him back. Maybe for the playoffs, but I think they still want that home field advantage, or to have. I mean, they're going to win the division, but there's a couple competitive teams that they have to potentially have a higher seed for. So maybe they'll skip, a couple days for rotation just to give him a little rest. But rest of the season, I think you feel fully confident rolling him out.
Yeah, Carlos Rodon has been insane. The increase in velocity. People talk about Ethan Katz a lot. Their pitching coach who transformed Lucas Giolito's career, and they pretty much brought him in strictly because of Giolito's recommendation, and he's done wonders. Dylan Cease, even though he hasn't had the incredible breakout year that I said he was going to have, he's still been a very serviceable pitcher. Carlos Rodon has performed to now an all-star level. I mean, Ethan Katz is really having them work with that core velocity belt this off season. It's really helped transform these guys. And again, I fully believe what the White Sox are doing here. So I'm definitely on board with that. I 100% agree with you guys there. So let's talk about the next person on this list. Doc, I'll start with you. Casey Mize, who has had a decreasing workload, or had basically talked about decreasing his workload back as early as May. And it seemed to take effect on his last few outings. He's been limited to about 3 or 4 innings, despite him continuing to pitch well. You even went out yourself personally to reach out to some Detroit experts to try to get their help to take someone down in fantasy baseball. So I respect that. But according to the Detroit Free Press, the Tigers are expected to turn him loose again sometime in August, potentially. And then they're going to have to decide to pull back again, depending on how he's looking. So as of right now, in 2019, he pitched 109.1 innings in the minor leagues. He's at 104 innings right now. So he's nearing right about where he pitched in 2019. So, Doc, if you have Casey Mize on your team, what are you doing?
So you skipped the 2020 because he did play in the MLB last year and he threw 28.1. And he's at 104 now. So figure after maybe next outing or 2 outings, he'll have thrown 4 times the amount of innings against big leaguers that he did last year. I look at the pitch count for him. In his first 15 starts to begin the year, he threw 80-plus pitches in all the games. In 2 of them, he threw 100-plus. In July, his 4 outings, 56, 50, 54, and 79, including some favorable matchups. 2 starts ago against the Rangers, he threw 4 shutout innings. They didn't even get him a chance to get the win. So for me, that has a little bit of concern. I also look at his ERA, and we talked about it with Trevor Rogers. To begin the year, in April was 5.06, May was a stellar 1.74, June 3.82, and in July 4.6. Once again, the Tigers are not a competitive team. Not saying that they shut him down, but I could see a lot more 4 or 5 inning pitches or 4 or 5 inning games. Or if he gets in jams, them yanking it and saying, hey, look, we're not going to get his pitch count up. We're going to get somebody else in here, not try to get him out and ruin his confidence.
Would you rather have him or Skubal rest of the season?
Skubal.
Okay. Jessica, so same to you. You have Casey Mize in your projection system. Do you see shiny skies or do you see stormy skies?
I see haze in the eyes. Like I don't know. I'm not feeling him, honestly. I don't think he gets the number requisite of innings. I don't like the amount of contact he's gone up. And yeah, you guys said it as well. I don't think there's going to be long starts. Maybe you want to experiment and see a little bit with what you have with the young guy, but there's no real reason to stretch him out for this year. This team is not going anywhere. And you know what? Again, it's the Marlins situation with Rogers again, right? Or at least in terms of psychology. Why stretch a guy out unnecessarily to increase risk of injury to where maybe you can eventually contend when Torkelson and others come up in the longer term?
No, I agree. I mean, the Tigers don't have much to play for at this point, so that's I think the smart way to go as well. Would you rather have Casey Mize or Tariq Skubal rest of the season?
Skubal by a mile. By a mile.
Nice.
This is a Skubal podcast. I like it. Let's move to our next person on this list, and that's somebody that's made their way into my heart, having him in a couple leagues, and that's Luis Garcia. He's been a pleasant surprise for the Astros. He isn't ready to take on a workhorse role or anything close to that yet. It's inevitable that the Astros are going to have to ease him at some point. I've been hearing that they're going to flip-flop him and Christian Javier, and Javier is going to start, and that Luis Garcia will kind of come into that long relief role, pitching like 2 or 3 innings at a time. So they did that with Javier to limit his innings, so they're going to flip-flop is what I'm hearing. Obviously, Jose Urquidy is on the mend. When he comes back, maybe that's when the Garcia workload change takes into effect here. So right now, Luis Garcia has 96 innings pitched in 2021. He pitched 108.2 innings in his last full season in 2019. So he's about 12 innings under what he pitched in 2019. So again, it's very fair to realize that there's a chance, hey, this guy is not going to be in there to give you 5 or 6 innings for the rest of the season. Jessica, what are your thoughts on Luis Garcia, and are you scared if you roster him?
Yeah, I love him because I use him in one of my reliever spots in one of my leagues, but I'm not sort of on his innings going forward either. I have that ranked 113th going forward. I mean, honestly, if you can keep him like as a reliever spot, because I'm of the belief that if you can use starters as relievers in designated spots, it's relatively good asset value, even if it's a swing guy like I think Garcia will be. But if you're like in an all-pitcher league where it doesn't designate and differentiate between the two, you probably should move on, or at least try to sell high.
Yeah, I mean, his name, I remember I actually used a waiver on him on one of the leagues we have with waivers early on after I had dropped him after a start because I was like, this dude looks like he's the real deal. And I expect him to still be effective in relief, but it's, again, going to be a question of, hey, do you need wins? You know, he might not be able to give you those anymore. The strikeouts are going to go down with him in less innings. There's a lot of that's going to hurt what he's going to help you in categories, but he still should hopefully be effective for you. And I wouldn't just get rid of him or try to get, sell him like we were talking about with Trevor Rogers and a couple other guys. But let's talk about somebody who I am very intrigued about, and that's Logan Gilbert. And he's kind of was a little bumpy to start things out, but he's really turned it around recently. He pitched 2021. He's pitched 56.2 innings to this point. He pitched 135 innings in 2019. So the 56.2 innings obviously is at the major league level right now. So you have to combine the minor league innings in there as well. Jessica, what are your thoughts on Logan Gilbert rest of season?
I'm a little bit concerned about him in innings as well. Although you would hope that Dakota would decide that they're going to buy, and so they're going to push guys. I have him honestly about Trevor Rogers' range, but with the added bonus to his benefit that he's on probably a team that's closer to contending by a lot than Miami is. So I have Gilbert very heavily. If you give me a sec, sorry about this. So
you're good.
I have Gilbert very high in my whip ratings, very, very high. So he's somebody to note if you need your whip to go down in your roto league. He's somebody that you could really consider on really that type of impression or acquisitional level. I think I do have a little bit of concern about the type of contact he's given up, but I think so far he's been able to get away with it because of the sample at the major league level he's dealt with. But he's somebody I really like going forward, especially if you're in a dynasty league too.
Yeah, I mean, he's looked insane. In dynasty leagues, you have to be happy about it. He's actually on a list of, and I'll give SP Streamer a shout out for this stat. He's one of 7 pitchers this season with a WOBA against under 270 and a strikeout rate over 27% over the last 2 months. So he joins a list of Carlos Rodon, Kevin Gausman, Corbin Burns, Zach Wheeler, Brandon Woodruff, and Charlie Morton. He really looks like he's coming into his own. He was obviously a very, very high pitching prospect. And again, every pitcher I think is going to have a little bit of a learning curve early on, but he looks like he's really settled in his groove. He's a very tall, lanky pitcher, which obviously if you're taller is going to help breed that deceptiveness because you're closer to the plate when you release your pitch, less time for the hitter to react. So he's somebody that if you have in Dynasty, you're ecstatic, and redraft, again, maybe just write it out a little bit more, and great guy to have right now on your roster. And like Jessica was saying, in the whip, he's going to help you a ton. So let's talk about the last person on this list, and that's Mr. Shane McClanahan. The Rays are usually both tight-lipped, ahead of the curve on these matters. They don't really talk about if they're going to shorten pitchers' innings. They obviously are usually the trendsetters, and people follow what they're doing in regards to pitching. As with Gilbert, we just talked about, there does seem to be enough innings based off his 2019 total, where maybe it's not as much a concern for his 2021 total right now. Right now, obviously, you also have Tyler Glass now, who might not pitch, so the more reason to make sure he's pitching for their postseason aspirations. Right now, he's at 71 innings in 2021. He pitched 120.2 in his last full season in 2019. So he's about 50 innings, or just under 50 innings, under his 2019 total. So, Doc, I'll go to you. Mr. Shane McClanahan, if you have him, you just riding that wave, or you looking to sell?
I'm looking to sell. I just think with the Rays, it's a little unpredictable. Now, you mentioned that Tyler Glass now, his situation's a little iffy. They did trade Rich Hill, so that should open up a rotation spot. But Kevin Cash gets creative. He uses bullpen games. He'll mix up the rotation. I think besides Charlie Morton at this point, I can't think of somebody that's a lock to start for the rest of the year. I could see them, the Rays using him in a middle relief or kind of a bullpen role. I mean, this is his first year pitching in the majors, so maybe just getting him a little bit of experience. The Rays do that more than anyone else. Last year he threw 120 innings in 2019 threw 120 innings over 3 levels. So I see them kind of keeping it around that range, maybe a little bit lower just because he didn't pitch at all last year. So if I can sell him and somebody's giving me something decent in a redraft league, I'm going to take it.
All right. Well, Jessica, what are your thoughts?
So I'm on a similar boat, though. You mentioned he's about 50 innings away. I have him as 51 innings pitched the rest of the year. I think they're going to play very safe. And Tampa will mix and match. They will put in some swing guys to start for a few innings. They'll do extended openers. I think that's their latest trend. It's not just 1 or 2 innings, but maybe a swing guy that goes 2 or 3 innings instead. I'm not really sold on him either. I'm on the sell train. I don't think he's going to get the requisite number of innings necessary with how Tampa really uses their guys down the stretch to keep them fresh for playoff time. And they're kind of contrary, right? So they treat, I think, their pitching guys more like how a rebuilding team would, just because they want to ensure that they get the most out of their players when it really counts. And for a team that's, I think, rather likely to make the postseason, I mean, when you're dealing with the type of budgetary constraints that Tampa deals with year after year, I think that's the smart play. It's terrible for fantasy players, but that's why they do it. And I think it's smart for the organization, but it's also smart for you to pick up on that and act accordingly.
I agree. And with that, this list of 8 players is finito, and make your calls accordingly. The MLB trade deadline is tomorrow. Most leagues' trade deadlines are around this time if you're in a trading league. Obviously, if you're in a high-stakes league, there's no trade deadline. There's no trades. But you have to figure out if these guys are getting their innings shortened. You have to figure out if you're going to hold on to them and not pick up guys that are going to have a chance to pitch without a leash on them, metaphorically speaking here. So take that information as you will. With some great stuff brought by these two here. But with that said, let's move on to our question of the week. All right, our question of the week is sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Triple Play Fantasy is an official affiliate to Monkey Knife Fight, the fastest growing sports betting site in the United States. Use promo code Triple Play and get up to $50 of your deposit matched when you become a new user, and you use that code. So our question this week, do you think would be the best golfer in Major League Baseball? I have someone in mind. So Jessica, you're the guest, so I'll go to you first. Who do you think is the best golfer in MLB? Or Doc, we can go to you first. Who do you think is the best golfer in Major League Baseball?
You know what? For me, it's Mookie Betts, and this is a repeat answer, but he just seems like that guy that's good at everything. Like, he's a great outfielder. He's a great hitter. He's a five-tool player. He can bowl a perfect game. He could commentate well. He's probably good at golf, and we just don't know it.
That's a good answer. I'd love someone to ask him if he played golf, because I think you're right. He's good at everything he does. It's not fair when
he's a savant.
Yeah. Jessica, what about you? Who's your pick? Well, I'll give my pick. My pick is Mike Trout, who
I can see it.
If you literally have just...
Are you talking about the Top Golf thing?
If you literally just looked at the top... I was looking for the video and I couldn't find it to put up on screen.
Him and Bellinger.
I don't know, dude. Mike Trout's went to like another stratosphere.
Bellinger's did too, and Bellinger sometimes has an uppercut, which you might need in golf.
Yeah, but with his swing right now and his baseball swing, I'll trust Mike Trout over that.
Mike Trout's not even healthy though.
Yeah, Mike Trout still was good when he was like healthy.
Well, if you're talking about currently, Bellinger is healthy but sucks, and Trout is injured.
Yeah, but I'll still trust Trout any day of the week. All right, let's go to our game of the week. All right. The mood is set. Doc is hosting the game, which I have no idea what we're playing. Jessica, are you ready for this game that Doc is hosting here? Or you know what, Doc, why don't you tell us the game and then we will play from there. Tell us what we're playing.
All right. Well, as host of the game, we are going to play what I call Journeyman, and it's a game we played before. I'm going to give you a player and then the teams they've played for. Your job is to tell me what order they played those teams in. So you get a point for each one, and then I have a tiebreaker that it's going to end the game because there's no way that you guys would get all of these in order. So we're going to start with David first, then Jessica. Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right, David. Well, while Jessica is waiting to come back, I'll give you the first person. You ready, buddy?
Let's go. I got my phone ready to go.
It's CJ Cron. Now, the teams he's played for are the Rays, the Rockies, the Angels, the Twins, and the Tigers. You have to give me the order that he did.
Rays, the Rockies, the Angels, the Tigers, and which team?
The Twins.
Okay. That's okay. So I'm gonna put them in order right now. I'm pretty sure that it was the Rays, and then, or I'm sorry, it was the Angels, then the Rays, then the Twins, then the Tigers, and then the Rockies.
All right. Well, since Jessica isn't here, you got it all right. That's a perfect 5 for you.
Ooh, doggy. You know what? I feel very proud of myself for that. I want you. You know what? I don't just want this, Eric. I don't just want this. I want you to cheer with them. Cheer for me.
Come on, you got one thing right. Jeez, this is why nobody likes you.
Let me do the second one. Let me do the second one.
All right. The second one, David Price. His 5 teams, and this is easier than the one we played last time, by the way, because a lot of those I couldn't use again. David Price's 5 teams: the Dodgers, the Rays, the Tigers, the Red Sox, and the Blue Jays.
Okay. So I think obviously got drafted by the Rays. Then I'm pretty sure he went to the Tigers. Then I'm sure he went to the Red Sox. Then I think he went to the Blue Jays and then the Dodgers. I'm double check. I'm deciding if I want to put Blue Jays first, or I'm pretty sure it was Red Sox, then Blue Jays, and then Dodgers. So yeah, Rays, Tigers, Red Sox, Blue Jays, Dodgers.
You got 3 out of 5. Should have switched the Red Sox and Blue Jays.
Oh!
The Red Sox traded him to the Dodgers in the Mookie Betts deal. How do you not know that?
I knew I would. I knew it was like right there.
Jeez, you call yourself a baseball fanatic. That was an easy one.
Oh, my God. Oh, geez.
All right. Well, we'll go to the third one. Maybe I'll just have you go all along, and then if Jessica comes back.
Go ahead.
All right. The third one, Gene Segura.
Okay.
The 5 teams he has, the Mariners, the Brewers, the Phillies, the Angels, and the Diamondbacks.
Angels and Diamondbacks. Okay. So I guess I'm going to say for Gene Segura, right now he's on the Phillies, so that's last. I'm going to say he was on the this one's the toughest of the 3 by far, for sure.
Yeah, it started out easy for you.
I feel like it was – I don't even remember him on the Brewers, to be honest with you.
So what's the question here? Who he was traded for?
So
you could both do this one together, yeah.
Yeah, so Jessica, it's called Journeyman. So, for example, this guy, Gene Segura, played for 5 teams, and I'm going to give you the teams, and then you have to tell me in what order he played for the teams.
This will be for all the marbles, since this is the last one. We'll just do this for all the marbles.
Okay. So the 5 teams are the Mariners, the Brewers, the Phillies, the Angels, and the Diamondbacks. So I'll let David go first, and then you give me your 5 after.
So I'm going to go with the Angels, the Brewers, the Mariners, the Diamondbacks, and the Phillies.
Okay. All right, Jessica, what is the order that Gene Segura played for his teams?
All right, so I know that obviously he's on the Phillies now, so that has to come last or first. If do you want it first to last or last to first?
Last. So like obviously he does play for the Phillies now. Phillies would be number 5.
Right. Okay. So I remember it was weird when he went to Seattle because they weren't really a contending team, and I remember he was a hot piece, and that was the same division but cross league, so therefore it's Arizona. And I remember he came up with the Angels, so that means the Brewers is the second team. So it's Angels first, followed by Milwaukee, followed by Arizona, followed by Seattle, followed by Philadelphia.
5 for 5!
Oh, man.
Stick a dagger in David, and he gave himself all the cheers. Jessica coming in and wiping the floor with David. Yeah! You love to see it. Woo!
God, too much energy there. Too much energy for this.
Oh, no, David. See, this is Waba Fett counter. You were hyping yourself up after getting 5 for 5 for CJ Crone. Back and hit you.
That was the hardest one for sure.
He was in the Greinke deal, right? Because that's what I remember. He was in the Greinke deal, and then he was in like the Taiwan Walker deal. Because I remember when because I remember when Greinke got traded. He got traded in the Brewers trade. They were asking if it was a fair trade. I'm like, wait, Zach Greinke actually follows baseball. This guy could be a GM someday. Because he was asking if the return was good on that trade.
Do you guys want to know who the tiebreaker was going to be?
Ooh.
Who?
Rich Hill. He has 11 different stints.
Oh, my God. That is oh, geez. Well, on that note, Jessica did get the win. Crowd cheered for you. They applaud the amazing effort you put in for the game and also for the show. And I just want to say, on behalf of Eric and I, thank you so much for coming on the show this afternoon. It was a ton of fun having you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I know you're going to have Darnell McDonald on later today, so I figured, what better way to welcome him than with a few stats and fun facts about him that puts him in very unique lights. You guys want to hear that?
Yeah. We already spoke with him, but I'm all about Darnell McDonald.
We're following up with him.
We'll share with them. Nothing better than the power of retrospection. It always gets your predictions right 100% of the time. Okay. All right. So I think the less interesting of the two. It's so interesting, but it's so cool. So there have been 5 players in Red Sox history who had a home run with the team in each of their first 2 games, starting with Jake Jones in 1947, Lee Thomas in 1964, Sam Horn in 1987. Danny Santana actually did it this year. So that's why I came up recently. And then Darnell McDonald did it in 2010. So that's a lesser of the two. That's a little bit of your appetite whet right there.
Oh, wow.
And then the second one, I thought this one was really cool when I came across it. So there have been 3 players, Gavin Caccini on June 19th of 2017, Hector Gomez on May 4th, 2015, and Darnell McDonald on August 30th, 2009. And those 3 and those dates are the only 3 to hit their first major league home run off of Clayton Kershaw.
Oh,
Who's the person ever hit his first home run against Kershaw?
so he did like talk about that on the show. He was like, yeah, like my first homer being off Clayton Kershaw, he has the ball. I didn't know he was only one of 3 to do it. That's nuts.
That's an elite category.
Yeah. I mean, you might as well go in the Hall of Fame if you first home run off Clayton Kershaw. That's nuts.
Right? That's cool.
But those are awesome stats, and he's supposed to follow up with it. We're supposed to do a part 2, so those will be the first things I'll bring up to when we talk to him again. But again, thank you for those stats. Thank you for coming on the show. And can you let our listeners know anything like where they can find you, any work that you're doing, or anything like that?
Yeah, so right now I'm a free agent in terms of, like my long form pieces, but right now find me on Twitter at Jessica D Brand. If you have a question, I will do my best to find the answer. It doesn't have to be stats, although I love stats, and I will research it for you. I have tables that will do a little bit more than what StatHead does because I figured out how to code in Excel recently. But I will answer questions about history, opinions, projections, really anything you want to know. And I'm getting into a little bit in football this fall if you want to know about that. Fantasy side of things. So really anything is on the table. And I mostly tweet about those 2 because I think they get the best engagement. But you can really ask me about any sport, and I will do my best to answer or project it for you.
Awesome. Well, I love to hear that, and I'll definitely be looking for some of the football stuff too. Is obviously we do football, baseball, and basketball. So love to see the awesome football tweets you put out. As obviously the baseball ones have been exceptional so far. But everybody that listened or watched, however you consume Triple Play Fantasy, we appreciate you. Next week we'll be joined by Ben Palmer, who should be a fantastic guest. He actually is a local Baltimorean, I think himself, or at least a Marylander. So that will be a fun show. But until then, everyone be safe out there. Enjoy another week of baseball. And we're going to make like a bread truck and haul these buns. Catch you guys in the next